I want people to know that they can still do things with their money to create memories and joyful moments for their family and live their life abundantly. At the same time, they can also be doing all of these things that are very, very disciplined and very diligent and very, specific to, making sure that they're good stewards of their money too. So.
Hi, and welcome to the Christ-Driven Woman Podcast, the recommended podcast for Christian female entrepreneurs and really any woman who wants to grow closer to Christ. Whether you are just starting out in business, a seasoned entrepreneur, or a stay-at-home mom, you, sister, were created for far more than you could possibly ask or imagine. I'm Charisse Burton, Christian Certified Master Business and Life Coach. And from my experience growing from beyond the impossible as a teenage runaway to a successful CEO building multiple six-figure businesses across multiple industries, I will teach you how to hit your first 10K month and then go far beyond that using my proven systems. These strategies will help you build a business that defies expectations and also will grow your faith beyond measure. I'm so glad you're here. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Christ-Driven Woman Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. We have already started without you and have already been laughing this morning.
We've prayed for some grace.
Exactly. And we just know that it's just, we're normal. And I love that. And, dogs running through, spouses running through. It's just life.
Background's not working, so It's fine. It's all good.
It's all good. So I want to introduce to you today my special guest, Melissa Harris. So I'm going to get my glasses on so I used to try to memorize these before that was no good. So I'm just going to read. So Melissa is somebody that how did we even connect? I don't even remember how we connected. It was definitely through social media.
Facebook.
Yeah, it was Facebook. So Melissa is a driven woman. She helps others find their purpose and live abundantly. Her career began with a very varied aspirations, which I love this because everybody thinks, the first thing or right out of college or whatever, that's got to be the thing. And so I love that you included this. It was varied aspirations, including teaching and cosmetology, and culminated in a 25-year stint in retail management.
Yes.
The turning point came when, at 9 months pregnant, her mother suffered an accident, highlighting her need to for better financial knowledge. This experience spurred Melissa's transition into the financial services industry, where she founded her firm, Renewed Wealth. She focuses on providing families and small business owners with the financial education and tools they need for asset protection and achieving financial goals. Love that. Outside of finance, Melissa mentors others, advocates for entrepreneurs, and creates programs centered on faith, fitness, and finances. She also explores digital marketing for additional income streams and dreams of opening a nursing home with home-like comforts. That is so cool. Melissa and her family are active in their Charleston, South Carolina community, building a legacy of service and empowerment. So welcome today, Melissa. I'm so glad you're here. One of the things we were joking about is we don't even need the questions. I mean, every time we have ever gotten on a Zoom or had any sort of conversation, I mean, it is like 90 miles an hour. And before we know it, an hour has gone by. And I love that about Melissa. And I think one of the things that is my favorite is that she really is just real. She just is real. So I would love
real.
I mean, you can't be. How can you not? I mean, it's just, I don't know how people can not be real. It's just, I can't. I'm not good enough to not be real.
It makes you hard. It makes life you hard.
I can't keep up with it. So tell us a little bit more about you, Melissa.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a pretty good summarization. I mean, obviously that's my bio, that I kind of put together, but a lot of things that people don't know about me would be more that, I always struggle. I think it's funny now that I'm in the financial industry and kind of help coach and guide people, because everybody thinks that when they sit down, they're so ashamed or so embarrassed about what their situation is. and feel kind of lost in that. And I was that person. I mean, I was your summer school for math every single year in middle school and high school kind of girl, right? So it's not like math, it just came very naturally for me. I raised 3 children with my husband who traveled sometimes 40 to 50 weeks out of a year. He would either be in another state or another country. So I have felt the pains of having 3 children in 3 different schools and not having a spouse there to kind of, raise them and bring them up with you day in and day out to help with laundry and meals and running kids to and from and all the things. And then on the top of that, I had my mom who, my husband and I took in at a very young age, raising our children. And then we took care of her for many, many years as well after her accident left her paralyzed. So I think, me is, one of the things that I feel like if I could go back into my 20s, my early 20s, I know we all say, if I only knew then what I know now, but I don't know that, as life has progressed and as I've become more, alert and more aware and knowledgeable and wise, whatever you want to, label that, I realized that I wouldn't have done with it then what needed to be done with it. So I have learned through this process that it's all God's timing. And if he hadn't have given me those hardships and those obstacles in life, I wouldn't be the fighter that I am today for people when it comes to these topics, right? I would be like any other financial advisor out there, not that they don't fight for their people. I'm not saying that at all, but I would be, sitting behind a desk day in and day out, and I would just be crunching numbers. And that is not what our program does. It's not what I do. It's not what my team and I stand for. So I just think that, overall, I'm a mom, I'm a cancer survivor. I have known Christ all my life, but that does not mean that I have followed Christ all my life. I've been off the tracks a few times here and there, life and just bad decisions or what have you, feeling like I could do things on my own and all I needed was manifestation and to wake up every day and go hustle. And that's just something that, of course, in the last 5 to 10 years of really doing a deep dive in my relationship with Christ, I know that that's just not accurate. We can't do those things on our own. So, yeah, I love dogs. My husband and I love to just hang out on Saturday mornings and drink coffee and maybe watch a movie or, watch a TV series or something that we may be following. We love to go to church. I've got 2 beautiful grandbabies, 3 grown children. That kind of sums up all the fun stuff.
That's awesome. It's so funny that you mentioned that about not necessarily being a math person and having, doing the summer school and all the things, because, oh my gosh, I joke about the fact that, how they say certain traits skip a generation. My dad was, is a mathematician, and there's never been any more truth to the fact that it skips a generation than with me as the example, because I'm telling you, I am lucky I got through college algebra. And that's where my husband learned most about me, is through helping me get through college algebra.
Well, I know. It's so funny because I'm surrounded by, my husband's an engineer. My dad was always in law enforcement. So with that, a lot of people think it's just the physicality part of it, right? The physical pieces of it and kind of knowing the laws, but it's not. There's a lot of like criminal justice or investigative type things that bring in a lot of math. So I was like, why am I here? Why am I go down this path? But, God just really reached out and provided. It was like this industry kept coming to me every single time I tried to take a different path. This industry kept coming front and center. And he was like, I had you, just really spoke this to my heart. I had you go through some of these things, not to just, come out on the other side as a winner, as defeating these battles that I put in front of you, but I allowed them in your life to teach you how to be stronger and how to be bold and how to teach other people how they could avoid them or how they can get themselves out of those situations. And so, he just really spoke to me and said, I don't need you to know all of that. You got a calculator now that you can carry around with you anyway, right? So
yeah, exactly.
Right. And he's like, girl, just go teach somebody this
I'm
stuff.
telling you. I always say I am the kind of person that God made calculators for. That's exactly who I am. So you mentioned that you and your team do things a little bit differently. You don't sit behind the desk and crunch numbers. Tell us a little bit more about what that is. What do you do that's different?
Well, first, we're out in the community. We're very, very engaged locally and across the U.S. So we do a lot of Zooms and virtual networking and lots of virtual teachings and speaking, and we'll travel and go do all of those things. For personal purposes, like let's say there's a local group somewhere, even not in our state. I'm in South Carolina, but we travel all over the U.S. Let's say they're wanting to do a retreat or something like that. We will go to them and actually teach them the concepts. Now, sometimes travel fees and things like that are associated with those types of events. However, we don't charge for the actual program. So they really, we're not charging a lot of money to go in and teach them. We just want those other things covered. And I've actually had people in the industry say, why do you do that for people when you don't get paid to do that? This is where I think we're very, very different. Some people go to the soup kitchen at Christmas time. Some people like to volunteer at their food drive for their church. Some people like to do Sunday school and volunteer to teach the children and things like that. I feel like my mission has been to go out and teach people these things. When God speaks to me about how, through the Holy Spirit and just all the ideas and everything, it's always about how there's too many Christians out there who are still struggling financially. It's causing them to have both parents at work and not raising their children. It's causing financial strains on the marriage. It's causing a lot of times for somebody to just really be so work obsessed that they can no longer be there and engaged in their family and attending church and really just, out there doing their work for Christ. So he's like, that's where I need you focused. And I've tried to do some other little things on the side. I was kind of always engaged in politics and things like that in my past with my dad being in his position and things. And he just really spoke to me and said, I need you out of all that. That's not where I want you. I want you really focused on getting money in the right places and really help people understand how to be good stewards of their money so that I can create this abundance in their life. But I need them to understand how to manage these pieces first. And so that's really what we're focused on. And then I partnered with a couple of amazing ladies who are, very faith-driven women. And they also have, one is really focused on the faith piece, and one is focused on, of course, her faith is always leading her in her business, but she's also focused on the fitness piece. And I told her at the beginning of this year that it was really placed on my heart to really get my own health under control. And that's not just losing weight, but when I sit down to have a meal, I want it to be a time of fellowship. I don't want to just be so focused on, because I'm going to tell you that's, you're going to laugh at this, but, oh my gosh. And for a while there, it got to be where every single time I would sit down and order a meal out, something was wrong. And I'm not talking about just, they didn't bring me ketchup, right? I'm talking about complete wrong meal, not cooked properly, or let's say I got grilled chicken, it would come out fried. And it did not matter what it was. If I ordered steak fajitas, they would bring chicken. It became kind of a joke there for a little while. And no, this is totally off subject, but
no, we're good. I love it.
Good. This is good. Because, my first reaction in that was obviously, I'm hungry. I'm sitting down with my family. My family's not going to be finished eating if I correct this and, all the things, right? Or maybe I was in a hurry. And so I really just I said, God, I just want you to be in control of my food. Like, I feel like this is becoming almost an obsession for me at this point, even though I didn't feel like I was really like overeating or any of that stuff, but it was almost becoming a very negative thing for me. And I said, I just want you to control this. I'm just going to laugh this off. The next time chicken comes out instead of beef, I'm just going to eat it. It is what it is. I'm using this as nourishment for my body, and that is it. I don't want it to be for any other thing. And the minute I started thinking about that, it really just put me in a position to think about all the other things that, that were centered around food for me and fellowship. And so I really put an emphasis on that this year. And I brought this other team member on because that's what she focuses on. And so she's really helped me with that. So now I make sure that, it's not just a quick prayer when I pray over my food. It's an in-depth prayer to the point where, I have to warn people, hey, this is not going to be just thank you for this food and nourishment for my body. This is going to be about some other things too.
Just
because
get comfortable.
I just don't want to dive into the food piece of it. I want this to be about thanks and about, me being focused on that.
But Melissa, it's so actually on topic because that is such a great example of kind of how we look at our money, how we treat our money, and how we just, we don't want anything to be wrong with it. And we don't take the time to pray over. I mean, I don't even know the last time I prayed over my money, but most especially pray in depth over our money and letting the Lord be in control of that. And not just, when we tithe or donate or whatever, but being good stewards. So I think that is an amazing example kind of what you do and how you support your clients. You get them away from just that focus on the dollar and that focus on, because we do get to the point where, especially when finances are tight or when we're struggling and there's a strain on the marriage, we start focusing more on the money. I mean, I am absolutely guilty of that, focusing on the money coming in and that there's not enough. And oh my gosh, and we got to pay this, we got to pay that. And, and I've talked about that so much because you're absolutely right. It causes that strain, but it also causes us to lose focus on where we really need to be looking, which is just at our provider, not
Absolutely.
just at the provision.
Absolutely.
Such a good example.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that, we even talk about it occasionally on some of the things during some of our talks and retreats, especially where we talk about that even the financial diet for people, right? We also don't want people to be so focused on cutting back that they're not creating memories and not living in the moment as well. I think there can be an obsession on both sides, right?
Yeah, been there. You cannot feed kids for 2 weeks, 4 kids with $25. It's not going to happen. Yeah. You can't do it.
No.
So I've been there.
Well, you can't. And I've seen the opposite. I've seen people live like that for years. And then, something happened to whatever the situation is. And they can't even before they even get to the place where they can enjoy what God has provided for them, something tragic can happen. So I want people to understand they can do all of those things at once. It's kind of like God giving us direction, giving us the 10 commandments of living in this world, right? He knows that we're going to live in this world. I want people to know that they can still do things with their money to create memories and joyful moments for their family and live their life abundantly. At the same time, they can also be doing all of these things that are very, very disciplined and very diligent and very, specific to, making sure that they're good stewards of their money too. So, yeah.
And I think you're right. We lose sight of that. Whenever we are in that place of strain, we lose sight and we get so hyper focused in one direction or the other.
Yep.
So could you give us an example of what you would do with an individual who comes to you and says, this is where I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm super frustrated. Can you give us an example of what your team would do?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, we start always with a discovery session, if I can talk, session. So that means that we just sit down and learn about, where they're at mentally, emotionally with this and financially. So we're going to go through a series of questions that we go through with every single person. They're very non-invasive. Once people go through it, they're just like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I have put that off, from me sitting down and doing those things. And you just made it so fun and so easy just going through it and just answering the questions for you. And just giving them some clarity on that. So we start there. We go through a series of questions just to kind of learn where they're at and where they want to be. Like what is going to, I'll give you an example when it comes to debt, right? These are the types of things that we're looking at. There's not just a debt snowball or a debt avalanche, which is what most people, start with if they go to start paying off their debt. There's also things that I call it the monkey on your back, right? What is it that really keeps you up at night? Is there a credit card debt? Or let's say it's a debt to a provider, maybe an attorney or maybe a counselor or something like that, or maybe medical bills that really just weighs on you. Like I said, I'm a cancer survivor. Maybe somebody continues to receive bills each month that pertain to a heart attack or a stroke or losing a loved one or cancer. And that may be the first thing that needs to come off the list, because we don't want the enemy to have an end to that person every single month through this stressor of money about this situation. It could be divorce. It could be any of those things. And the enemy will use that to say, okay, this is just that bill coming in every month, but it's not just the bill. The person opens the bill and they feel in their heart and they feel all the emotions continue to come up about that. And it may be something that they did wrong. Maybe they didn't, try hard enough through their divorce, or maybe they feel like part of that weighs on them. And it's just a way for the enemy to keep them down month after month after month. And that may be something we need to focus on. So those are things that we really dive into through this discovery session. It's not just about, getting the numbers in order. It's also, the faith and the fitness pieces are there as well. And a lot of times people will have health ailments that come with all of the stressors surrounding financial strain. So I feel like the faith, fitness, and finance just all are wrapped up together. So neat to say, what is it that's causing you to not be able to lay down at night and get a good night's rest or have faith in God, or whatever it is that's causing this issue for you? What is that? Let's focus on that.
I really, really love that, because it really, like you said, you just said you counsel them through that. It's really more about that. That's, I think, what makes your program so unique, because
Yes.
it's a holistic sort of approach to your finances and your fitness, and how faith is over all of that.
Yes.
And how one really does affect the other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And people will share that with us as we're going through these sessions. They'll say things like, and we ask, especially if there's a spouse involved, and for anybody out there who has a significant other that will not sit down with you just yet, it's okay. We can help coach them through that as well. But for those couples that do come sit down, I ask them to answer the questions individually, because the whole point is to see where they're at and what differences there are. There's not the same priorities between a husband and a wife a lot of times. It may be generational wealth for her, and it may be retirement for him. So it's going to be bringing those topics together and creating a plan that can accommodate both, that gives them something that they can, live by very easily.
That's awesome. I kind of snickered when you said, about if the spouse won't come with you, because I was that person. Like the first 10 years of our marriage, Andy would be like, we've got to talk. And I'm, no. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I would literally close my ears. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. He's like, Charisse, you have to know this. And then I grew up a little bit and started figuring it out. So I love that.
I'm glad he had you do that. I'm glad he did that. Because one of the number one things with women over 40 that come to us is they've either lost a spouse through, just loss of life, or divorce potentially, and they don't know where to start. And so it's really, really scary to have to dive into all the financial pieces and not have any idea on where the bills are paid, when the bills come in, what is out there as far as life insurance or retirement accounts or any of those things. We help put all of that together with our planning.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is going to be switching gears or not, but I want to ask you, because I always ask everybody to give me a title for their episode. And your title is Unshakable Faith, Standing Firm with Christ in Business. So I want to know, tell us what made you name this episode that.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest part of that has been, in the world we live in today, people are afraid to kind of make a stand on their beliefs a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because they don't want to, maybe for somebody like myself who does a lot of social business, meaning I'm on a lot of different social platforms and I do get quite a few clients from that outside of my local area or clients that I've worked with in the past who do a lot of referral pieces for me. Most of my business comes from social media. And I think there's a lot of people that are really afraid to make their stand on, whether they're a Christ follower or not, or whatever. Why does it matter? I want all the people to come to me. I want all the people to come to me too. I have to say that, I'm never going to turn somebody away because they don't have the same beliefs as me, because that's where we have to step up and say, this is a great opportunity for me to have a place in this person's life to maybe be able to witness to them. But I think before you can do that, you have to be unshakable in where you're at, because otherwise you get into conversations that could potentially plant seeds of doubt for yourself or lead you down a path where you don't need to be going. And so I think you have to have the unshakable faith there. And I think in business, we have to realize that we do have to stand firm on what we believe. I don't think you have to have it plastered everywhere, right? Because that can be a turnoff for some people who are non-believers. But I do believe that, when I meet with clients, we pray. We open our hearts, we open our minds. That's how I do business. And I'm never going to falter from that. I want to pray over those things with people. So I do feel like it's my, in a position that I'm in when I'm meeting with clients face to face and stuff, I do feel like I need to let them know that, because I need to let them know what they're walking into. And that to me is just kind of why I wanted to summarize that up in for this podcast, for this show, right? To say that I think that's one of the biggest things that we have to do right now. He's asking us. What's so great about right now, this gets me fired up.
Oh, I love it.
What's so great about what's happening right now? Because most people see what's happening in our world right now as all negative. I don't, though. We are in times that should be telling those of us who are true, believers and Christ followers, because, Satan is a believer too, right? So we have to be very careful about that. But for those of us who are true Christ followers and are trying to grow that relationship every day and be warriors for Christ, this is our time. We are living it right now. And I just thank him every day. I'm like, thank you for just thinking that I'm strong enough and I'm solid enough and I was going to do enough or say enough or be enough that you felt like it was important to have me here in these times. And so now what do I need to do to make sure that I'm carrying that out? And I think that the first thing is just to be unshakable, no matter what anybody says to me about how negative, or no matter what happens in my life, how negative or how disappointing or how any other title you want to give that. You can't take me off of the end prize, which is, living with Jesus an eternal life in Christ. That's it. Period.
Oh, I love that so much, because you're absolutely right. We don't look at it really with that overall picture. We look at the moment of what's going on right now, and having the perspective, just like you said, of God knew He created you who you are, and he knew you were going to be the person he needed today in this time to be a witness and a soldier and a warrior for him.
Yes.
And that's privilege. I mean, it's a privilege. And being able to step up to that is, I mean, it's not easy, but it is powerful.
No.
And we absolutely can do it because Christ is doing it through us. It's really not even our own power. We just have to be willing. We just have to be willing.
It's like David stepping up to Goliath, right? It's one of the most known stories in the Bible. And all these other people were like, no way, we got to have this. And he steps up and doesn't even have the tools he needs to defeat this giant. And God's like, I just need you to be the vessel. That's all I need you to do is just be the vessel for this. I've got the rest taken care of. So
I love that. So, because you're right, it's the most known story across the world, I think, other than maybe the Noah's Ark. But the thing is, the point that you just said that he didn't even have the tools. How often do we go, oh, well, I'm not ready. I've got to have this and this and this in place. And I mean, I've been guilty of that. And, I always joke about God just up there shaking his head at me lovingly, but shaking his head at me going, you don't need anything. All you have to do is stand there. And I will do the rest. Open your mouth, stand there, and I will do the rest. And we just get in our own thoughts and don't realize how much Jesus works in this world because we get so overwhelmed with all the negative that we forget how much Jesus is working in this world for our benefit.
Absolutely. And I mean, we know all of these things are going to happen. We know that lies are going to be told. We know that people are going to be deceitful. We know that all of that's coming and going to get worse before it gets better, right? But I know what he's doing behind the scenes. And I know that unless that all comes out, unless it all surfaces, unless people start recognizing it, that person can't give their heart to Christ. They're lost. And so I just look at it as, I just keep every day people are like, oh, I don't want to turn the TV on. I don't turn the TV on. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The only time I turn the TV on is if I'm watching something very specific or if I'm doing my Bible study on there because I love Heart Dive. I don't know if you've ever watched that, but oh my gosh. Gibson is just an amazing lady who goes through, she's doing the Bible in a year. I think next year she's going to switch it up a little bit. She's done this for 2 years straight. But this is the first year I've tapped into her program. But oh my gosh, I just get on there and I just get into it. And sometimes I watch 2 or 3 episodes and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got things I got to go do.
Heart Dive, right?
Heart Dive. Yes. And I watch it on YouTube. So I'll get on for very specific things, but outside of that, I keep that shut off and I'm just looking for the good. I see the negative. I hear the negative talk and I don't trust me. I feel it because my energy and your energy and those of us who are built during this time to be warriors for Christ in whatever capacity that is. This is so important. I just talked to somebody about this yesterday. When I say warrior, I don't mean you've got to be frontline fighting, right? There are lots of stories throughout the Bible too that talk about the men or the men mainly at that time went out and fought these battles, but they also talk about the people that stayed back to make sure that the families were secure or to pray over or to hunt or to do what they needed to do here. Every single person in this story that's taken place today can be a warrior as long as they're doing what God's telling them to do in that process, right? As long as they're following his direction in that. So some of the warriors are going to be just prayer warriors. And not just prayer warriors. We need them. I need like a bunch of them every single day surrounding me.
No kidding.
And all the things that we're on a mission to do. But it doesn't mean, there's some of us who are going to be a little more vocal. I'm probably one of those more vocal people, right? That would be willing to say it out loud in front of large groups of people. There are going to be some that are not comfortable with that at all. And God's like, that's not where I want you. That's not what I created you to do. I don't need you to focus on that. So it's just great that he's created us all different to do all of these amazing things. And I just hope people just pray that he just reveals what your role is in that to you. And then you don't worry about the tools. He's got the tools.
True. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Melissa, this has been so fun. I always love talking with you. But so tell us how people can get in contact with you and if you have something that they might want to have.
Yeah. So I will actually, I can go in and post in the chat for everybody to go straight to my digital card. And if I could pull that up real quick, I could give it to you, but I'll definitely put it in the chat. So
We'll put it in the show notes too. We'll put it in the show notes too.
I've got a digital card that's going to say, HTTPS, right? Semicolon, forward. And then it's going to be tinyurl.com/Melissa digital card. But we're going to type that in for you. So don't worry. You're going to be able to just click it. On that digital card, you're going to have everything you need to be able to get into contact with me. Phone number, email, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, my stand store, every single thing is on there. And I do have lots of amazing things out there. Like I have some free digital downloads. I have how to teach your children about finances. I have divorce workbooks. If you're somebody who is currently going through a divorce or recently has gone through a divorce, I do have a financial workbook on that. I've got lots of resources out there. If you reach out to me in any way and ask me for any of those resources, I will make sure if you mention this show, then I will make sure I get that in your hand and you do not have to pay for that. So,
that's awesome. Thank you so much. And Melissa, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. And thank you for pouring into our audience. And again, I just pray that anyone who needs what you have finds you. That's what I pray about this podcast and this episode and who it goes out to. So thank you so much for being here. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. And I would love for you to leave a review and tell us what you got out of this particular episode that really hit your heart. And we will see you next time.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for being here today and listening. Please leave a review and tell me what hit your heart the most. I would love to hear from you. And if you want to partner with me and the production of this podcast, just head over to this Patreon link. Thanks so much.